Chapter 5. I was not sorry to say goodbye to my brother and his soldier friends, although I was sad to say goodbye to the princess. Should I tell her the truth? Was I wrong to pretend to be the king? I did not know. Rudolph, be careful, won't you? The princess said. Be careful of what? I asked. I can't say. But think what your life means to the people of Ruritania. She said. I remembered what Rose had said about my brother Robert back in England. He realizes his position in society brings with it responsibilities. I had always wanted to have a quiet life, but I suddenly realized how many responsibilities I now had here in Ruritania. How on earth had I got myself into such a situation? Over the next few weeks, I am pleased to say, no one seemed to notice I was not the real king of Ruritania. Because I looked so like the king, it was much easier for me to pretend to be him than to pretend to be my neighbor at home, for example. I learned a lot about how a country is run, but I made mistakes, sometimes big ones. I became very good at pretending I had forgotten rules or people that I had met, and I hoped my growing popularity with the people of Ruritania would help them to forgive my occasional bad decisions. One day, Sapt came into my room. Here's a letter for you, he said. From the writing, I think it's from a woman. I also have some important news. What is it? I asked. We now know that the king's at the castle of Zenda, he said. How do you know this? We asked where the rest of the 6 men were, and found out that they are all there at the castle. Lohengram, Krofstein and young Rupert Henshaw, the 3 biggest criminals in Ruritania. Do you think the king's definitely there? I asked. Almost certainly. The 3 men are always at the castle, and people say the drawbridge is nearly always kept up. That is not normal. No one goes into the building without the permission of Rupert or Michael. Then I must go to Zenda, I said. That wouldn't be a good idea. If not today, then soon. I must go there. You'll probably stay there forever if you do, said Sapt. I was silent and I could see that Sapt was studying my face. What's worrying you, Rasendal? He asked. Tell me, Sapt, why is it that wherever I go in the capital, I'm followed by 6 people? Because I've ordered them to follow you. But why? It would be very useful for Michael if you disappeared. And if you disappear, the game's over. I don't need such help, I protested. I can look after myself. De Gottat, Bersanen and Descartes are in Strolsa, and any one of them could catch you easily, he said, as if I were a child. So, what's that letter? Said Sapt, pointing at the one he had given me. I opened it and read it aloud. If the king wants to know something important, please do what I ask. At the end of New Avenue, there is a house in a large garden. There is a wall around the garden with a gate at the back. At midnight tonight, go through the gate where you will see a statue of a horse, turn right and walk 20 meters. There you will find 6 steps up to a summer house. Go into this summer house and someone will tell you something very important about your life. But you must be alone. If you do not come, your life will be in danger. I am a loyal friend to you. Do not show this letter to anyone, or it will put a woman in great danger. Michael will punish me. Yes, and Michael can also write a very good letter, said Sapt. I thought the same, surely Michael had written this letter to trap me. I was about to throw the letter in the bin, when I saw that there was more writing on the other side. If you do not believe me, ask Colonel Sapt. What? Said the colonel. So I read on. Ask him what woman has been a guest of the Duke. Ask if her name begins with A. It must be Antoinette de Maubon, I cried. How do you know? Asked Sapt, and I told him all I knew about the woman. I've heard that she came to Ruritania with her servants as a guest of Michael, Sapt said. People say she had a great argument with Michael, and now she's staying somewhere in Strolsa. So she could be useful to us, I suggested. Perhaps she would be useful if she had information about Michael. However, I believe that Michael wrote that letter, said Sapt. So do I, but I'm not certain, I said. I'll go to the house tonight. No, you mustn't, said Sapt. Let me go instead. You can come too, but you must wait outside the gate when I go in alone. I don't believe this woman and you're mad to go, said Sapt. I believe this woman, and I will go, I said. Either I go to the house, or I go back to England. We don't have much time. Every day we leave the king imprisoned there's more danger. We must move quickly. Sapt was beginning to know when he could tell me what to do and when he could not. So reluctantly he agreed with me. At 11:30 that night, we got on our horses and soon arrived outside the gate to the house, carrying our guns. It was a very dark night. I'll wait for you here, outside the gate, said Sapt. Good luck. I opened the gate and I found myself in a leafy garden. I saw the statue of the horse and walked across the garden with the gun in my hand. I followed the directions given in the letter and, although it was dark, I soon arrived at the summer house. When I went inside, I heard a woman's voice. Shut the door, the woman whispered. I did as she asked and then looked around the room, which was lit by a small candle. It was almost empty except for a small iron table and 2 chairs. In the soft light, I could just see Antoinette in front of me and her servant behind. We have little time, Antoinette said. Listen. I know who you are and I know you're not the king. You're Mr. Rassendyll. I wrote that letter to you at the Duke's orders. In 20 minutes, 3 men will be here to kill you. Or I'll kill them. I suppose they're 3 of the Duke's 6 men. Yes, you must leave here before they arrive, so listen carefully. The plan is to kill you and to take your body into the old town. It'll be found and Michael will arrest Colonel Sapt and Captain Fritz von Tarlenheim for murdering you. Then a messenger will be sent to Zenda and the real king will be murdered too. The Duke will then become king. Do you understand? Oh, yes, I understand. It's a clever plan. But why are you helping me? I don't like to see people being killed. Now go. But remember, you're never safe in this city. You have guards following you, don't you? Well, Michael's men are following them. If you're alone, then you'll die. Now go quietly this way past the summer house for about 100 meters. There you'll find a ladder against the wall. Climb it and run as fast as you can. And what will you do? I also have a game to play. I'll tell the Duke's men that you never came. If the Duke doesn't find out what I've done, we may meet again. Thank you. You've helped the king tonight, I said. But before I go, tell me something, do you know where he is in the castle? Yes, I do know. Inside the castle there's a door on the right, and behind that but listen. They're here. It's too late for you to escape. I looked through a gap in the summer house door and saw 3 men standing outside. Then I heard a voice, which spoke in English. Are you in there, Mr. Rassendyll? I did not answer. We want to make you an offer, the voice said. Will you let us in? Do not trust them, said Antoinette quietly. Stand outside and talk, I called. I won't let you in. That's a good idea, said the voice, who I thought must be Descartes. Is that Mr. Descartes? I asked. Our names are not important. We can offer you a safe journey to the border and 50,000 English pounds, he continued. That sounds a generous offer, I said, but of course I did not trust them at all. Give me a minute to think. Then I told Antoinette and her servant to stand close to the wall, away from the door. What are you going to do? Antoinette asked. You'll see. I picked up the iron table and held it by the legs so it was in front of me. Then I said, Gentlemen, I'd like to accept your kind offer. Perhaps you can open the door for me. Why don't you open the door yourself, said Descartes. Very well, but it opens outwards, I explained. You'll need to step back or the door will hit you. I pretended to try and open the door, and called out, I can't open it. Then I'll open it, called Descartes. As Descartes was walking up to the door, I moved quietly to the back of the summer house. It took him a few seconds to open the door, but as soon as he did, I ran at him as fast as I could, holding the table in front of me. There was a terrible noise as all three men fired their guns at once, but I was protected by the tabletop. The men were all standing on the steps up to the summer house, so as I ran out, the tabletop hit them and they all fell down the steps. Before I knew what was happening, I too was falling down the steps, but as I was on top of the men, I managed to get up fastest and run away, firing my gun behind me. There were angry shouts and more shots. I remembered what Antoinette had said about a ladder and soon found it and climbed over the wall in seconds. Running along the outside of the wall, I heard more shots but realized they were being fired by Sapt, who was trying to get into the gate. Sapt! It's me, let's go! I shouted. You're safe, he cried in surprise. I have a fine story to tell you about a table. I told him, as we jumped on our horses and rode quickly back to the palace. The next day, Sapt read me the latest report from the chief of police. Some interesting things have been happening this morning, said Sapt. The police report says that the Duke of Strelsaw left the capital by the road to Zenda. An hour later, he was followed by de Gautet, Bersonin, and Descartes, who had a bandage around his arm. I was pleased that my shot the night before had been a good one. Finally, listen to this, the people of the capital are not happy that the king has yet to marry the princess. Some people say that if they do not marry soon, it would be better if the princess married the Duke of Strelsaw. However, the king is having a ball tonight for the princess. I don't know anything about a ball, I said. Oh, it has all been prepared, said Fritz, by me. Listen, said Sapt. You must ask the princess to marry you tonight. I can't do that, I said. It wouldn't be fair to the princess. That evening, the ball was a great success. After we had eaten, I sat with the princess and some of my other guests in a small room by the palace gardens. The servants brought us coffee and we had time to talk. You've been king for a few weeks now, said the princess. Everyone says you've done a very good job. I'm very pleased for you. You know, someone once said to me, a person who has a position in society has responsibilities. Recently I've realized how true this is. Haven't you always thought that? Asked the princess. No, when I was younger, I didn't think I needed to worry about society. I thought that was someone else's job. The princess looked very surprised. But you always knew that you would become king. How could you think that was someone else's job? Once again, I had made a mistake in what I said. But suddenly, instead of saying something to cover up my mistake, I wanted to tell the princess the truth. She was kind and clever and she was going to marry the king. She should know what had happened to her future husband, and she should know all about my game. I decided I had to tell her everything. Flavia, I said quietly so none of the other guests could hear, there's something you should know. I'm not really. But I never finished the words I wanted to say because at that moment, we heard footsteps in the garden outside the room. I looked up and jumped with fright, because a face suddenly appeared at the French window. I relaxed when I saw that the person looking in on us was Sapt. I apologize, but there's someone who wants to see you, sir, he said to me, but I could tell from his eyes that he was angry. How long had he been listening to my conversation with the princess? Had he heard that I was about to tell her the truth about who I really was? We returned to the ball where the princess went quickly away with her servants and I was welcomed by other important people at the ball. I realized then that my game had gone too far to go back. I could not tell anyone who I really was or they would think I was mad. Sapt had stopped me from saying too much to the princess, and Sapt's plan really was working. The next morning, Sapt and I sat in my room thinking about what to do next. Do you realize, I said, that everyone really thinks I'm the king, even the princess? I could even arrange for the duke and the real king to be killed. This is all true, said Sapt. So will you do such a thing? Of course not. I shouldn't be here, pretending to be anything. It isn't fair for the people of Ruritania and it isn't fair for the princess, either. We can't wait any longer, I said. We must go to Zenda and rescue the king. You're a good man, said Sapt. First, however, I needed to see Princess Flavia again. If I could not tell her the truth, I could at least warn her that the situation in Ruritania was not as good as she believed it to be. I visited her in her palace later that day, and she asked her servants to bring me some coffee. Then she told me that she had received 2 letters. One was from Michael, who had invited her to visit Zenda. Then she showed me the other letter. I don't know who this one's from, she said. I immediately knew who it was from. The writing was the same as the letter I had received. It was from Antoinette de Maubon and it read: You do not know me, but I do not want you to fall into the power of the Duke. Do not accept any invitation from him and do not go anywhere without many guards. Show this letter, if you can, to the leader of Ruritania. Why does it say the leader and not the king? She asked. You must do as the letter says, I said, not answering her question. I'll order guards to watch you. Do you know who sent this? She asked. A friend of mine. Today you must say you're ill so you can't go to Zenda. So you don't mind making Michael angry? She asked. I don't mind anything if you're safe, I said. I had an idea about who would be the best guard for Princess Flavia, and I immediately visited Marshal Strakench, who I knew I could trust. I asked him to guard the princess and not to allow any of the Duke's men to visit her. I told him I was worried about the Duke's ambitions, and he did not look surprised. I'm leaving Strelsaw for a few days, I told him. Every evening, I'll send you a message. If you don't get a message for 3 days, you have the authority to say that you are now the head of Strelsaw. You must then ask the Duke to allow you to see the king. If he doesn't allow you to see the king in 24 hours, you must say that the king's dead. Then you must tell the people of Ruritania who their new ruler will be. You do know who that will be? Princess Flavia, of course, he answered.